Hi, everyone. Once again, it's my pleasure. I'm Vincenzo Berghella to welcome you to another sessions of AJOG MFM Live, the Pink Journal. Once again, I'm with Dr. Kavita Narang, who is an MFM and a wonderful colleague. Good morning, Kavita.
Good morning, Dr. Brigella. Thank you again for having me here. We're back for our round three, Happiness 3.0 today to talk about, setting goals, which we'll kind of jump into our objectives a little bit shortly here. Um, but maybe before we start, Dr. Brigella, I kind of like what we did last time, perhaps inviting our audience to join us as well to start with some gratitude, on today morning, just to kind of because gratitude is directly correlated with happiness. So just take a moment, think about something you're grateful for. Do you want to share something, Dr. Brigella? Anything big gratitude you'd like to share today?
I guess real quick, maybe I'll take a picture from my desk here. I think it always goes back to family for me.
Oh,
I'm
that's beautiful.
most thankful for this, for this happy faces, for my two older kids and their girlfriends. Actually,
Uh,
May is coming later on today, and this one here, if I can, yeah. And my wife, again, my four kids. I think that makes me happy. I'm spending time with them all the time. One lives in the same block, the other one in New York, but I see him all the time, and the other two obviously are home.
mhm.
I hope they keep healthy and good and close. So that's what I'm really grateful for. What about you?
That's fantastic. No, thank you for sharing that. And that's so beautiful that you actually got everyone in one frame. I know it's not always to do that, especially with little ones too. So
All right.
For me, I would say definitely family too. So yesterday actually was my parents' 37th wedding
Oh,
anniversary.
wow.
Yeah,
Congrats.
yeah. So thank you. So I'm just really grateful, for their love, and the life that they've given me. And I say it every time, like everything I am, I owe it to them. So I think that's such a huge blessing in my life. And then I'm also grateful for my own family that I have here now. My husband Tori, our kids, Jude and Remy, and just looking forward to spend the weekend with them. So it'll be fantastic. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. You recognize your family and your parents as well often and social media as well, and I think that's wonderful. Um, good for you.
Yeah,
My father passed away 5 years ago this month,
I'm
so
sorry.
special thought to him. And my mom turned 86 this month, and she's still good. So I'm blessed as well.
No,
Wonderful
it's
thoughts.
beautiful. Absolutely. All right. So, we're just going to jump right in. Like I kind of previously touched on that this is our third session now. And today, the goal of our talk is going to be focusing on that point number three about having meaningful goals and how that directly correlates to happiness. So, Dr. Bergella will kind of talk about the evidence base from about it, from his beautiful book about happiness. And then I will chime in and add some practical tools and tips to help you start jump starting setting goals and how to achieve them as well. So let's dive right in.
Thanks. And I hope you followed our first two sessions, where we covered social relationship and doing what you like to do. And this is very much, correlated. The third of six goals of six keys to happiness, sorry, we're gonna
Mhm.
cover is having goals. And it's really, one of my favorite ones. Actually was Aristotle's that said happiness is action. And
Mhm.
it's important to think about what your goals are in life. Yesterday, I was telling you before we started, Idalyn Carey was here. She's the leadership guru who runs the SMFM leadership course.
Mhm.
And start with why is what she talks about all the time,
Mhm.
leadership. And this is very related to happiness and having goals. What are your why?
Mhm.
And for example, this author wrote, "A real happy man will be building a boat, writing a symphony, educating his son, growing double dahlias in his garden, or looking for dinosaur eggs in the Gobi Desert," which I love. uh, it doesn't really matter, what it is. Again, helping your family, like we're talking before, or um, you know, growing a beautiful garden, or again, trying for some of us, to help moms and babies, have better pregnancies.
Mhm.
Um, this is me when I was in college. As you can see, I had hair and studied hard, obviously, all my life. And I think it's important to have some kind of goal. Maybe you're earlier in your career, and you have a goal of getting to medical school, or getting to residence, getting to fellowship, getting to a good academic job or community job or whatever job, and making it a calling. Really having goals means having a calling. Going to work, in particular, with a calling, not because you have to, but because you want to. Um,
Mhm.
One of the most famous happiness guru here, researcher, he wrote this beautiful book, The How of Happiness. Say that you find a happy person, you find a project, and I think that's really, really true. I have lots of close friends who I can tell are happier when they have, I have somebody that's actually a maestro. He's the music director here of the opera company in Philadelphia. You know, he may be a little bit anxious and stressed, when he is about to give, to be in front of 3,000 people directing, Verdi or Puccini or whatever.
Mhm.
But that's his calling, that's what he likes to do. Or somebody else, before transplant surgery, or somebody else before, retired, and I have a friend who has a house in France, and
Mhm.
he's fixing it up. Whatever project it is, it's really important. And sometimes you kind of have to figure out from others what you're good at, where your strengths, and finding your goals. Sometimes, your mentors are good.
Mhm.
I have here three phrases that were told me in the past, and helped me kind of figure out what my calling was, especially in MFM, OBGYN. I remember going to a conference and somebody said, I've not seen you in a while, but it's like I was with you all year because of the literature,
Mhm.
you wrote. Or your paper, last month on cesarean delivery was very good. And now, do this step, the way you suggested. Or, and somebody else, and this is years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, beginning of my career, there's no better advertising for a career than writing. I didn't do it for that reason, but this phrase has kind of helped me say, okay, I am mad about C-section and doing the right way, and there's so much evidence. I'm glad, I'm doing all this work. Some people must be um, in listening, and we talked about this before. My number one strength is learner, so it all fits together. That's how I
Mhm.
kind of find my professional goals, and I
Mhm.
think for people listening here, it's really important for them to figure out what makes them most satisfied, what others are saying they do well and they also enjoy doing. And I came up recently, and hopefully in a couple of months we'll do something about love. There's a pyramid of love, but this is the famous pyramid of life. I didn't come up with
Mhm.
this, so you can find this in the internet everywhere. But sometimes we forget. I think probably most of us listening, have the first two steps. Not everybody does. There are millions, hundreds of millions of people who don't have, safe water, food, shelter, safety. There are wars everywhere. Um, but many of us do. Then, the yellow thing is so important, belonging and love, what we just talked about, you talked
Mhm.
about, your gratitude, partner, family, and friends. Then some kind of self-esteem and feeling of accomplishment, which we kind of covered in the last couple of sessions.
Mhm.
Doing what you like to do, doing it well, and now we're talking about goals. And then eventually, really, and I think it happens, unfortunately, to only a few of us, achieving your full potential. Kind of,
Mhm.
I say it, and it sounds crazy, but I really mean it. Finding out why you were born,
Mhm.
finding out what inside of you is best, and that's your goal. Something that you should pursue to actualize what you have inside of you.
Mhm.
What do you think? What should we set goals? What's your
Yeah.
take on this?
No, absolutely, Dr. Vega. And I think it all what you said just now really ties back to our previous sessions as well. So if anyone listening is kind of figuring out like where, what are they talking about strengths and what you like to do. So the way I would describe setting goals is basically it is you need to set your goals so that your vision is something that inspires you, aligns with your strengths and your values, and serves a bigger purpose. That's kind of like how I personally define goals, and it's what I keep in mind when I'm setting a goal. And so our
You
last
know,
session.
sorry to interrupt, but you said this before. It's so important, and I say it sometimes. I've heard other people say it a different way. You should the way you think and when what you do and what they should all be the same.
Mm-hmm.
It should all be
Yeah,
aligned. That's kind of what you're saying. Say it again. What you
I
just
said,
said.
yeah, I said you should set your goal or your vision on something that inspires you, aligns with your strengths and values, and serves a bigger purpose. So I think it comes from you, and it goes out to the world. It comes from who you are at your core, and you are here to serve people, because that ultimately is what brings happiness full circle, right?
Absolutely.
Coming from you and going out, because if you're doing something coming from you but only for you, you will find yourself being unfulfilled at the end of the day. You might gain temporary happiness, but the long-term happiness really comes from seeing the impact of what you do to help other people. And I think that's exactly why you do what you do too, right, Dr. Begala? Like you talk about, like, of impacting preterm birth, and the cerclage is a lot of your real core work. It's impacted millions of lives around the world, and I think that continues to fuel the drive to keep doing it, to keep building the goals. And the other thing I would talk about is the way I would describe goals. Another way is, I think of goals as building blocks for your dream. When you are setting goals, it's so important. Last session, again, we talked about the North Star. We did a visualization exercise together that, helps you think about what your dream is. And when you think about what that big dream is, and when you know that, that is when you start to know what goals you should set in life. Because they're not going to be empty goals, they're going to be meaningful goals that lead you to that dream. If you don't know where you're walking towards, even your goals might not line up, and you might feel you're not really getting to where you want to. So I think it really comes down to, please take a moment, go back and watch that episode, figure out what your North Star is. And I think you'll get a lot more from this session too, you know? And, but why? Why should we even set goals? I think number one, it's directly correlated to happiness, right? And more importantly, I will say, having goals or setting goals and the journey of doing the goals makes you happy. Achieving goals makes you confident, right? I think that is the two things I do want to point out. When you have goals, you're not only becoming happier people, you're becoming, more confident. Like you talked about in your previous slide, Dr. Bergala, about self-esteem. Having goals boost that, because if you're someone that you've always doubted yourself, or you're not sure, or you've always been told like you can't do this, but if you challenge yourself and say, I'm going to set a goal, and once you're able to achieve it, you have proven to yourself that you are capable. Okay. So set goals for happiness, achieve goals for confidence. It kind of ties together in a picture. Gives your life meaning and purpose. It gives you drive every morning to wake up and say, hey, I have something to do today. You have something to look forward to. And if you have nothing to look forward to, you're just going to want to mope around it at home or in bed, and then before you know it, you wasted years of your life. And we're all precious human beings. We have this opportunity. We have to do something. We can't just sit here and waste our life away. And the other important thing about, a lot of what we talk about is also burnout in physicians, right? Having goals, and not always just your medical or career goals, goals outside of medicine. Even that helps you to prevent burnout. It gives you something to look forward to. And I think people in medicine in general are so ambitious anyway. We're always setting goals. But today we're going to talk about what goals you should set. How should you choose what goals to set? So, anything you want to add on that, Dr. Bergella, before I jump into this a little bit, the science behind setting goals?
You say it so beautifully, Kavita. I don't think I could say it better. I think people must be thinking also. I have so many things, and I am burning out a little bit. I think we'll talk about it probably later on as
Mhm.
well. I think it's also important to focus on those.
Mhm.
Again, for me, it's under the shower in the morning. I think about the day and what
Mhm.
I'm most passionate about. Like, for example, I know today I have millions of things to do, so many meetings and patients, but I have an editorial I'm writing about a special issue at SMFM coming up on cervical length, and that's really what I want to do. And
Mhm.
no matter how many people come through the door here and how many meetings they set for me and whatever, I'm gonna do that.
Mhm.
The goals you have, and they could be, again, you said about the weekend. You want to spend time
Mhm.
with kids and husband. No matter what, that's you make sure that that's what you're at. I think too many people, keep checking emails and answering
Mhm.
phone calls. At some point, you need to shut the rest,
Mhm.
emails, the phone calls, the meetings, and this is your goal,
Mhm.
professional or personal. Focus.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'll talk a little bit more on that on like when we go through the practical tools and how
Yeah.
people that how it's important to actually putting your rest time and your break time as part of your schedule as well. But a little bit about setting goals. I think especially this time of the year, it's if we're just into January. It almost feels like we've been so long into 2024, although it's just been 26 days now. But I think this time of the year, so many people always setting goals, right? New Year's resolutions and all these big goals and big plans. But one thing, not everyone's going to achieve their goals, right? How many people have you talked to that they start setting their goal and then a few months later you're like, so how was that? You were planning on losing 10 pounds. How is that going? Or you were planning to apply for this job, or you were planning to submit, and most people like have given up on the goals already by that point. Because a lot of people forget the two most important things, and this is evidence based from University of Oregon actually published a paper on this about like the will and the way of setting goals. So it's really about basically the why and the how if you translate it. In order to have a goal and to accomplish it, you have to have two big things. The why, you kind of touched on that a little earlier just now. You need to know why you are setting a goal. It has to have a personal, deep meaning for you. It has to align with something that is going to connect to that North Star of yours or that vision of yours that you want at the end. So, example, I say, yeah, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to have six packs because everyone thinks it's a cool thing. But if that's not personal to me, if I don't care about that, I can try to do that and I will give up in 3 days because it's not something that truly aligns with what I value personally. So knowing your why, really think about it. Like, and I think we both can share our goals while we're going through this. For me, my big goal this year is passing my MFM oral board exams. I'm eligible this year. I'm taking my exams in April. And my why is like, so why do I want to pass my exam? Because I want to be a board certified MFM. I want to be able to give my patients the confidence in the care that I'm providing them. I want to make sure I'm providing evidence-based care, right? That's all my why. This kind of involves that limbic system for you, because when you achieve that, you will give yourself that dopamine surge, and that's what you're really looking for when you're trying to set goals like that. When you get to it, you feel rewarded. The second thing, now that you know why you want to do what you want to do, it's really important to have a plan. Some people just say, hey, I'm gonna do this, but they don't really have a plan in place. If you don't have a map going to where you're gonna go, you're going to be walking in circles for a long time, and eventually you might just give up. But if you're intentional about achieving the goals, you have to have a plan. How? And that is when you're engaging your cerebral cortex. You have to, whatever you do, you always have to engage these two parts of your brain to work together, because then you are more likely to accomplish it. And this is just scientifically proven, and we'll talk about those plans in a little bit. But let me ask you, Dr. Bergela, do you have, what are some of your big goals? I know that you've definitely had some big dreams or a vision in the past few years that maybe have translated into a goal. Do you want to share that with us at all?
Yeah, yeah. I was actually thinking, recently, I heard one of my partners that you went on colleges talk about kind of what you're talking about, the why. He's in his mid 70s, still going strong, wonderful guy. And he talked about his why is legacy and immortality. I kind of put some of the words in him because he sees now so many former medical students and residents around the country being leaders, division directors, chairmen, deans everywhere. Um, and even in our division, and I'm similar. I'm making is I'm using it as an excuse, but it's kind of my thing as well. Like I've recruited everybody in the division, and I have we have 80 plus MFM former fellows, from our Jefferson
Mhm.
fellowship. Yesterday one of them sent me an email saying, I only got to where I am because you gave me a chance, and sent me a picture of his name at the CDC, and he's applying for full professor.
That's
That's why he
awesome.
contacted me.
Congratulations to him.
So,
Yeah.
so those are, I think that for me, for we're probably two different generations. Obviously, Kavita, my the point of my career, and even earlier, it's the why is legacy of mentees, hopefully
Hmm.
doing the right thing and improving outcomes. Yeah, thanks for
No.
asking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, yes. And that's your other big goal, it seems like. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Dr. Bergilla?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had many goals, throughout the years. One of the ones that we talked this morning, before starting, is, like, for example, there's a little dream that is coming true. When I was president of SMFM, now almost 10 years ago, really wanted SMFM to go more global, to have more people, more members from international, to have an international committee, which we started, et cetera, et cetera, and also for SMFM, since it's so good a meeting, and it's coming up, the February 11th to
Mhm.
14 in the Washington D.C. area, but to also have another meeting, around the world, and finally, thanks to the current president, Dr. Cizione, Joanne Stone, and many others in the board, they empowered the CEO at SMFM to kind of look around the world, and I obviously, they contacted me, and I said, what about Rome? And eventually suggested this site, which is actually the Music Auditorium, which is a beautiful site
Wow.
in Rome. And that's where it's going to be. Now it's official. You guys can begin next month to send your abstracts and posters and orals, whatever, your projects, and hopefully see you, September 25th to 28th in Rome. It's I'm not going to get any money for it. I'm somewhat part of the organization, but others are leading. I I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a good thing for science, to get people from around the world to be more engaged with SMFM. I think SMFM has the best meeting ever, and a lot of people don't come, to Washington or San Francisco or Chicago. And instead, maybe if we have it in Rome, and then in Beijing, and then in
Mhm.
Cape Town or whatever, or Argentina, whatever, then we will attract more people, and I think, it will be good for our profession. So, thanks for asking. It's another little big goal, that I kind of saw come through.
Yeah, no, and I love that because I think this is exactly the example of what we're talking about, where we're talking about aligning your values and your strengths and serving a bigger purpose. I feel like this
Yeah,
meeting is again, it serves the bigger purpose of getting people together. And I think that was your why, if I'm hearing correctly, like that you wanted to make the whole world a part of this beautiful scientific community and discussion. Um,
yeah.
and you achieved it. So you set out to have a goal, and I think you explained your why. And then what was your how? Like when did this vision start for you? And just kind of, do you have any like breakdown of like how did you, because I think this is such a huge task to pull through, and you did it.
It's just an
Congratulations.
example. Well, I'll tell you a little story, and maybe, some international people would understand it. So, a few years ago, I had turned 50. I was invited to a meeting in Italy, and meetings in outside of the U.S. A lot of times they invite, the famous people, and three people before me were all more than 70 years old, and I wanted to make a point, and I say to this big audience, I'm 50. I'm now been, division director, full professor with tenure. I am president of SMFM. I'm done. I'm 50-year-old. I don't have any other goals. There's nothing, no more promotions I can really get. No other thing.
Mhm.
From the back, somebody kind of yelled, "Oh, come back here. The career begins after 50 here. We cannot do anything. Like, that
Ah,
young people are not
yeah.
empowered."
Mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that SMFM meeting, really empowers young people. They're going
Absolutely.
ready speakers almost, except in the postgraduate course. And they do such a good job of instead empowering, young people to present,
Mm-hmm.
which is so much better, so much better science, so much better presentation. And, there are mentees, mentors, behind them and everything. But that's kind of what I wanted to, I hope that, this first SMFM Global and many others to follow show a different way to not only show level one evidence, randomized trials and
Mm-hmm.
better evidence, but also empower everyone. It's almost like an equity and disparity thing. If you only
Mm-hmm.
let 60 or older people present and you give them all the power, or if you only empower 20 years old, the,
Mm-hmm.
we need to empower everyone. And I think that the SMFM does that the best in terms of the
Yeah.
science.
Yeah, no, very beautifully said. I love that. I love that. And then, I think we can jump into a little bit about like this for people who are kind of now thinking about like, wow, Dr. Bergela has all these big goals and he's accomplished it, but it all started from, you probably introspected at some point in your life. You're like, what do I want to work on? Right. And so for our audience, if you're kind of stuck and you're like, I don't know what to set my goals on, or I'm not sure what to do next, I'm going to give you a few tools here to kind of jumpstart that. Okay. And I love this wheel of life. And I know I've had you do this once before as well, Dr. Bergela, but I absolutely love this wheel of life. It's a very popular coaching tool. And the way this works is if you can grab a pen and paper with you right now while, looking at this slide, you can pause right here. And this concept of living in harmony is so important, and Dr. Michael Foley, he talks about it beautifully in his book Leading Humanely, as well as in his publication with the AJOG MFM journal as well, about living a harmonious life. And that really means all areas of your life you kind of give enough energy and priority to the different areas as and when you need it. So if you're not sure where you need to start setting your goals, use this 10. If you look on this wheel, number 10 is where you want to be in that area of your life. That's the maximum score. You will score a 10 if it aligns with that's what you want it to be. And any other number is where you are at today. Okay, let's say for example, money and finances, my 10 would be, let's say, $3 million in the account, just throwing a random number out there. And today maybe I'll say I'm at number 3 or number 4. Then I can focus on what are the steps I need to take to get to that number 10. I want you to complete this wheel, this book, for all around, and see which one area you score the least. Maybe that's where you need to set your goal right now. It doesn't always have to be career. It doesn't always have to be money. That is where you might want to invest your time, your energy, and set a goal. And ask yourself, if you're like, but I'm not sure what goals to set there, then ask yourself this question, which is the next question I'm going to ask you is, think about at the end of this year, at the end of, December 31st, 2024, what would you want that area of your life to look like? And write that down and be very specific. Be very specific. If And let's say for me, if I say again, we're back to the money example. Again, this is just an example. I'm not trying to make $3 million this year, but if I don't think that's possible as a physician either. But let's say, that is, my goal. Then I got to think about what are the steps I need to take to make that happen, because clearly working as a full-time MFM, I'm not going to get that, right? Like so that will allow you to then kind of think about what actions need to happen, what additional things you need to do to do that. Okay, so this is just kind of like guide. Again, use this harmony circle, think about the outcome and work backwards to think about the building blocks you need to lay down. And always, like I said, the other way to think about it is think about what your North Star is, what your dream is, and what are the steps you need to get there. All right. So now that you kind of have an idea of accomplishing your goals, there are a lot of reasons why some people achieve it and some don't. And so these are, from research, some of the key things that I found that really can help you accomplish your goals. So I just want to share with them one by one. And Dr. Bergela, feel free to chime in when I'm talking about any of them if you have anything you'd like to add to it too. Just for ease, I think this time I'm going to focus on my board exams, because I think that is my most immediate goal right now, right? And I'll kind of give examples related to that. So most important thing, know your why. You have to know why you want to accomplish this goal. We already talked about that significantly around just in the past few slides. It has to align with your values, and it has to be important to you. Like, I cannot say I want to do my board exams just because everyone is doing it, because the truth is that's not going to be a good enough reason for me. I might not want to put in the amount of effort or the time, because if I was going through some significant life challenges right now and I know that I would not be able to invest time to study, I should not set that as my goal. I can defer and say I would rather do it next year when I know I'm going to have the time and energy to put in to do it well. So just because everyone, my graduating fellowship class, everyone's doing it this year, does not mean I have to. But this year I'm doing it because I'm ready for it and I want to do it. So you have to think about what aligns with you, not because other people are doing it. Okay. And then this is very important. Small actionable step progress is very key for motivation, right? Like, when you think about setting goals, break it down, make it into tasks. So again, example of my board exams, when I think about, oh my god, all the studying I have to do, I have to submit the case list, collect all the cases, it's an overwhelming task. But now if I break it down into small actionable steps and I say, all right, between October to December, I'm going to get my case list together, and if I can log 5 cases a day, it's an actionable step and it's a small step. And if I just do that every single day, I've kind of broken it down into a task. By the end of December, I've logged all the cases I needed to without stressing about it, versus if I just say, like, oh my God, I have to log 90 cases. How am I going to get this done? When am I going to have time to do it? But if I don't have a plan, it's not going to get done. So break it down into actionable steps. Like right now, for myself, like if I'm studying, and now I have to start studying. I've submitted my cases. So between now and April is my exam. If I have to study, I'm going to break it down and say, okay, can I commit to 1 to 2 hours of studying every day? Maybe it's about reading 2 to 3 practice bulletins. I've broken it down. I have a plan in place. It's easier to do. If I don't have that plan, it's going to be harder, because I'm going to be like, oh my God, there's so much to study. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to end. Right. And I love this. There's this example from a research paper, I forget from where, but about, like, when you start seeing any progress being done towards your goal, it motivates you. So they gave 2 groups of people, these, when you go to the coffee shops, they sometimes give you these coffee cards that if you punch 10 holes, you get a free cup of coffee. So 2 groups of people. One group got a coffee card with 10 empty holes that need to be punched. Another one got a coffee card with 12 holes on it, with 2 of them already punched. So regardless, for both groups to get their free cup of coffee, they got to get 10 holes punched. But guess which one achieved it first, right? The one that had 2 already done, right? Because they already saw progress. And that's the thing, whenever there's even a small amount of progress made, your brain goes, well, we're already here. Why not? Well, we're here. Let's do it, And that is the same idea. I'm sure you all have heard about, like, people say, if you're trying to go to the gym, you'd never exercise. Start by putting your shoes by your bed in the morning, or go to bed with your gym clothes. I'm sure everyone's heard this before. It's the same idea. Create some sort of progress that requires little resistance for yourself. Start it, even if it's a small progress. You will see how much it motivates you. Another research that I've heard about, some coaches suggesting is it's called the 2-minute rule or the 5-minute rule. When you're not in the mood to study, because if you rely on your motivation, you're going to set yourself up for failure. You're not always going to feel motivated to do something sometimes. But if you rely on discipline and consistency, that is what will help you. So if you say, I'm going to give myself 2 to 5 minutes to study. I don't want to study, but okay, I'm going to force myself 2 minutes. I can do 2 minutes. And guess what? Once you start sitting for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, now when the timer goes off, you're going to say, well, I'm already here. I'm just going to do it. It's amazing. Your brain will just make you do it because the brain has seen progress. So do that. Set up some, easy progress starters for yourself when you're setting your goal. And then another important thing is I call the Goldilocks rule. When you're setting goals, make it that it is you're challenging yourself enough, because if there's no resistance, if there's no challenge, you're not going to be motivated either. It's not going to be fun, it's not going to be exciting. But challenge yourself enough, but don't make it so challenging that you're not going to be able to do it. Like if I tell myself I have to read 10 practice bulletins every day, that's a lot. I'm putting a lot of stress on myself. I'm going to do that for 2 days and I'm going to be like, I'm done, I give up. I don't, I can, this is very stressful. But if I say, can I read 2 to 3 papers a day, that's doable, I can do that. So I've set a goal, and that way I allow myself to feel like, okay, if I can do that, I feel accomplished. And then again, that accomplishment is a sense of progress. And then tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to feel like, hey, I did that yesterday, I could do it, I can do it again today. It's just slowly adding on to it, right? This is another big thing: one goal at a time. A big mistake that everybody makes, they're like, New Year's resolutions. Here, let me write down 10 goals I'm going to do this year. Don't do that. Do one goal at a time. There's a lot of science that now showing that single tasking is way better than multitasking. People love that, oh, I'm a great multitasker, and people wear it as a badge of honor. It's great if you can multitask, but you're not giving in your a efforts for all of them. But if you're doing single tasking, you're likely to gonna give it your a effort, right? So if a goal is meaningful to you, it's important to you, focus on that. I have other big goals I want to focus on. I have for this year, continuing to do this work, and hopefully become a speaker for physician empowerment and stuff. But my immediate goal right now is my boards first. I'm doing all this other simultaneously, but once my boards are done, I know I'm going to be able to invest 100% more energy into that next goal. So one step at a time, you'll be more likely to achieve everything. you know and then I said, as I told you earlier, remove friction, make it less stressful. And when you're setting your action plans, I love this question that I heard from a podcast. I forget who the speaker is, but I didn't come up with this question. Is ask yourself, what can you do? Not what I can do on my best days, but what I can stick with on my worst days. Because motivation is not going to come knocking on your door every day. Some days you are not going to feel motivated. You are going to have to rely on your discipline and your consistency. And that means that you have to be able to set a task that you're able to do even on those days. Okay. And then this another important one is having a range or buffer in place, I think is important. Again, if you set a goal to say, I'm going to study 7 days a week, it's less likely to happen than if I say, I'm going to study at least 5 out of 7 days a week. And now, when you give yourself those 2 days off, which, like in diet, people call those the cheat days, you're more likely to achieve your goals. Because when you kind of, feel like you didn't do it, let's say Wednesday, I had a busy day, I'm able to give myself grace. I'm able to take the stress off myself. I'm able to be kind to myself while achieving my goals. Because I'm like, all right, I didn't do it today, but it's okay. I have another opportunity if I don't make it one week. But then at the end of the week, you end up feeling celebrated. You're able to celebrate because you're like, I did 5 out of 7. Whereas if you set your goal for, I need to do 7 out of 7, and you don't do it, you're going to be hard on yourself, and you're going to say, I can't do this. And you're more likely to give up. So set yourself up for success, right? Create a process that at the end of the week or at the end of the day, you're going to be able to celebrate those little wins. And that's where this buffer really comes in. And this other last final one, I think is really important, is sharing your goals. When you have a goal and you tell it to somebody, especially if you tell it to someone that you really care about or you respect, that is a way of holding yourself accountable without realizing it. Especially if you have a mentor and you tell it to your mentor, because you never want to let your mentor down, right? You always trying to you know live up to some expectations. And while you should do it for yourself, it does hold you accountable, because you're like, oh, if I tell Dr. Bergella, I'm going to get my board certification this year. But if I now that I've told you, now I feel like I have to, I'm telling everyone I'm going to do my exams, and that will force me to put in the effort, because I know that if I don't do it, everybody's going to find out, and I don't want to put myself in that place. So it's an indirect way of holding yourself accountable. What are your thoughts, Dr. Raquel? Anything you'd like to add to all these points at all?
Oh, so much, but I'll stick to the last one. I think it's so important to share your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Not only you create people that can help you, be accountable. We talked about, if you want to lose weight, if you tell people, and if you do it with others, you achieve that. weight loss much better. But it's also like, let's say, your goals of passing your boards. I could think of people now listening to you and saying, you know what, I took them last year, let me give her a call, let me send her some tips on what they're going to ask.
Hmm.
Or, maybe some of your friends didn't know, or former mentors, current mentors, oh, let me, volunteer to give her a mock
Hmm.
exam. All of a sudden people know what you're interested in, what your goal is, and they want to help you. You're doing
Hmm.
research on something. I have some data, I'll share with you. Or you probably didn't know I did this and it's related, and you can use it as your background info. Or, have slides, you want to talk about thrombophilias, and you have your goal for a talk next week. Or, I gave a talk, let me send you my slides or my paper. So really, really important. People should know what your goals are so that they can help you.
No, I love that point. You're absolutely right. Because now all of a sudden, this goal becomes, it starts to impact other people's lives too. And it just gets bigger and bigger, and it's more likely to achieve even bigger standards than the vision you may have had. I really think, and honestly, like even what we're doing here today, I think for me, I think this started at the leadership course, with Dr. Bergella. And, I remember you going around the room and asking everyone your why and what you're doing. And, I mentioned talking about this life coaching, and that's because I was able to share that goal with you in the room. You were able to say, hey, let's do this together, and
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
So I am immensely grateful for this opportunity. But that, I think it came about because I was able to share that with you, and so it's just so wonderful. And I'm just glad we're here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The moment you say that you're a life coach and you're interested in this, I'm like, oh, we got to do this together.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's
And if
wonderful.
you didn't share it, I would have never known.
Exactly, exactly. And then this is another, just another toolkit that can help you while you're, I hope that while you're listening to our talk, you have the piece of paper with you and you're actually writing your goals, which will be very helpful. And I want you to listen to what we're sharing here, and hopefully help you refine your goals and make it more clear, really clear, gain a lot of clarity by the end of this session. And one thing, when you're setting your goals, be very specific. Like if you say you want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 10 pounds by the end of March 31st, 2024, by going to the gym daily. Like, be extremely specific. And the way you can be specific about your goal is ask yourself this question that you see at the bottom in the purple is, when will you know you've succeeded your goal? Write that down. Okay, like for me, back again to this, is when I receive the letter from ABOG saying I have my MFM certification, I passed my exam, that is when I will say this goal has been achieved. Right. So, and is it, and then the next, so write it down, take a piece of paper, write smart, and write your S, whatever your specific goal is. And then M, is it measurable? Right, for me, yes, pass or fail. Right. And then A, is it attainable? We talked about the Goldilocks rule just now. Make sure that it is, you're challenging yourself enough, but not making it so difficult that you cannot achieve it. And then R, is it realistic? Is this goal something that you think you are actually going to be able? You have to be honest with yourself, And again, if you're setting goals that don't align with your values, it's less likely to be realistic for you, and it's less likely that you're going to achieve it. So set goals that align with your values. And T, time bound. I remember I had one attending that told me, if you give a resident 3 months to write a paper, they'll take 3 months. If you give them 1 week to write a paper, they'll take 1 week. And that's true. If you have a time limit to when you're going to do it, you will get it done in that time frame. Right. And that way you actually, and once you have this, then again, go back, break it down into small actionable steps. How do you expect each day to look in order to get to that specific goal for you? Anything you'd like to add here, Dr. Bergano?
No, no, I couldn't agree more. I like the last one here as well. The time bound. I think a lot of for example, when you write books, a lot of people give you 6 months or even a year. I think that's wrong. If you're asking somebody who is an expert in the field, they can probably do in 2 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that. Everybody knows I love deadlines. You need to set a deadline and be done by then, and beat those deadlines, and that will make you successful.
Yeah. And speaking of deadlines, I also heard this one concept that I really liked how somebody that I was listening to, their friend, instead of using the word deadlines, use it as the word lifelines, which I actually thought was really nice. Instead of making it like a scary end, make that when you say, tell yourself, that's my lifeline, that's when you're actually achieving something that is going to continue to propel your goals forward. You know, you turn it into a positive. So that helps too. And then this is just other a few little takeaway things, big goals. A lot of people wait for New Year's. You know, it's always this whole cultural buzz that once it's New Year's, you're like, what's your resolution? What's your resolution? But why are you waiting for a new year when you have a new day every day? Every day wake up and set a goal, and that, like you were talking about earlier, that in your shower you're thinking about all the things you got to do every day, and that's wonderful. And that is actually one of the little key things for successful people is they have a plan for their day. They set the goal for their day, and you can start by the smallest thing. I have this personal thing that I do for myself, and I think I've shared this with you before. My alarm on my phone, when it rings in the morning, I have a message playing up, and I set my message to be, make great things happen today. So that is my goal. Every single morning I wake up and that's the first thing I see, and I tell myself, I'm going to make great things happen today, and right away I put myself in that happy, positive, productive mindset. And then I love checking off boxes, right? So grab a sticky paper or however you like to do it, and I like my to-do list. This is my to-do list today. And this is another really important part. When you're doing your to-do list, add a block for rest, add a block for your workout. It doesn't have to be filled with work activities, because when you're able to do that, you are balancing your harmony for your life. You're giving time for yourself to take time off. And now, if it's already in your schedule, you are actually taking the time off, you're not going to feel guilty, because you have allotted time to do all the other things that you need to get done. Because otherwise, as physicians, we all are guilty of this, that when we're doing something fun or we're not working, we feel like, oh, I should be working, I should be studying, I shouldn't be wasting my time. But if you've allotted it and you see it on the calendar, then you're fine. Those 2 hours you can enjoy guilt free, do whatever you want, right? And I think just having that mindset is important. And go at your own pace. And every day, I say, challenge your comfort zone. Every morning, ask yourself, what can I do today to be 1% better than yesterday? Just that simple question. When you're setting your goals, think about that. What can I do today to be 1% better than yesterday? And that's it. And if you think about this every day, at the end of the year, you're 365% better than you were at the start of the year already. If you think about it that way. Any thoughts, Dr. Bergella?
You said it beautifully. I can't say any better. I remember that, be 1% better than you were yesterday. Nobody's perfect. We can all improve
Mhm.
every day at any age. I think that's a wonderful message.
Yeah. And then this also, again, a lot of my content that I share here is, from listening and from books and stuff. So I came across this, that somebody talked about the seasons of your life and career. And sometimes when you're setting goals and you feel like you're not achieving this, you're like, it's taking forever to get to this goal, realize that your life and your goals also have ups and downs. They're seasons. Think about them, and there are four big seasons that they broke it down into: is a learning season, experimenting, performing, and thriving. Right. So, like, for example, Dr. Bergella, when you were thinking about setting out to do the SMFM Global, I'm sure you had this dream a long time back, but it took a while to finally see it to fruition this year, right? But during those years, if you just said, hey, I set this goal, it's not happening yet by the end of the year, and you gave up, which happens to a lot of people, right? You doesn't fit the timeline, you give up, but then you just kind of given up on that dream. But rather, if you look at it and say, hey, no, all right, I set this goal. You can readjust the goal. You say, okay, it didn't happen this timeline. Let me readjust, because recognize that you're going to have periods where you need to learn the new skill necessary to achieve the goal. You got to experiment. You got to get people involved. You got to perform. And then eventually it will happen. So be kind. If things are taking time, readjust your goals. It is not set in stone. These are your goals. Do it so that don't give up on it. Just modify it, adapt with it. That's what I want to say with this slide.
Yeah, I'm thinking myself, where I am. I'm probably, in my performance season, and going to the humility thriving season, and letting people, humility to me and in this life means, one of my strengths is maximizer. So seeing my colleagues here, the fellows, you and others, um, thrive not as much as me, and hopefully seeing some of these ideas. Same thing with the SMFM Global. It's probably an idea that is 30 years old. That's how long it takes, and you never give up. And for many years, there was an openness thing. I was telling everyone, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, let's have it somewhere. And there were budget scares.
Mm-hmm.
SMFM is a very American organizations, and how are we gonna who are we gonna trust? Outside of the U.S. To run the meeting. Should we partner with a society? There were so many
Mm-hmm.
questions for many years. And then, I think that I had said it long enough, and others as well, kind of seconded me. And then that eventually the consistency kind of, bore fruit, so to speak, and it became a reality. But um, yeah, I think there's a season, there are different seasons of your career, and it continues to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually, going back to what we said before, continue to do what you like to do and your own goals, and you don't even have to, like, if this global thing never happened, I think I was pretty convinced that even after I was dead, it was going to happen one day. It's a good idea. Like many research ideas, maybe I cannot do them all, but if I talk about them long enough, maybe others will do them, and we'll get there.
Exactly. Yeah. And it ends up becoming a collective dream, right? And
Yeah.
then, yeah. And then this other thing that I added here is, again, just to kind of help with, when you're setting goals, one thing to do also is at the end of every month, or any goals in life, or, when you're doing what you like to do, is having a friction audit. A lot of time people think of, like, when you have goals, you need to do more, do this, do that, do this, do that. Sometimes instead of doing, sometimes you have to let go. You have to undo or unlearn things, in fact, instead of doing. And I think this concept of friction audit is from an author, Dr. Adam Alter. I think he's a new professor in New York in psychology, and he talks about this idea of, like, every month, maybe end of the month, just take a piece of it and write down, what are three things that are holding me back this month, or three things that are holding me back from achieving my goal, and then work on eliminating those, right? And then second thing is having a system to check in with your, a feedback system. If you're setting goals, sometimes it's personal, but what are you going to do to create a feedback system? And it can be anything. Like, for me, I think I've shared with you this earlier as well, like my husband and I, we have our relationship check-in every Sunday that we do. That is a great feedback system for each other and for our relationship, because our relationship is constantly our goal as well. We're constantly working towards, making a healthy, happy marriage where we both are striving to become, better individuals daily for ourselves and for each other, right? So, we ask each other these 5 questions every Sunday, where we ask, well, like, what's going well this week? What are your challenges this week? What are you doing for yourself this coming week? And how can I be there to support you, right? And what can I do differently for you? And this just helps me kind of, when he's asking me all this, I'm also like thinking about, okay, so what am I doing for myself this week? What are my goals this week? And I know I have an accountability partner too, because I've shared it with him, and he's going to ask me at the end of the week, like, hey, those goals that you set last week, did you accomplish them? Or is there anything I can do to help you make those happen? So you feel like you have an accountability partner, you have a teammate, and you're fulfilling your goals, and somebody's keeping you in track. I think it's wonderful. And when you're thinking about your goals, be intentional that you don't disrupt the harmony of that wheel of life that I talked about. Make sure, keep checking in with that wheel of life. You have it now on the screen. You can go back to it anytime. You can download print copies online. Do it once a month and see, hey, what do I need to modify with my goals to make sure I'm getting my life back in harmony? And this really prevents burnout significantly, because in medicine, we are so used to investing all our time and energy in one place and unconsciously neglecting the others. You don't want to, but you don't realize but when you have it in vision, you're able to visually see that you invested energy only over there. You'll be able to make that shift. It's kind of, I think, my last few takeaways here. Yeah.
It's it's wonderful to go into the details, and like you did, and really make it meaningful to people. um, and related to having goals, the fourth key to happiness we want to highlight, and this will be the last one probably today that we'll talk about. It's that goal needs to have a greater meaning for yourself, and you said that beautifully. um, I think we're already in the best profession in the world. And this is scientifically proven. um, for many of us, hopefully most of us, this is a calling. It's not a job that you have to do. It's not a career, you have to achieve and become dean, but it's a calling, to help. I put up pictures of having healthy babies, healthy moms, etc. And careers that have a calling, if you're a clergy person, a rabbi, or somebody who believes in a higher being, scientists in general, even justices, who think, that they're making the world hopefully a better place. Um, but even administrative assistant and the person who mops the floor in the hospital
Mm-hmm.
can have greater meaning. And there's a famous um, experiment that eventually say that, for example, the cleaning people in the hospital, a third are happy, a third or so, and a third are unhappy. And the ones who are happy, um, they're the ones that think that, by cleaning that room of that sick patient,
Mm-hmm.
the sick patient better, less anxious about the room, happier that it smells nice, that it's tidy, that it's clean. So no matter what you do, you can find meaning in what you're doing. And my sister is a lawyer. Talk about being a lawyer all the time. It's sometimes, if you're dealing with murder, or you're dealing with divorce, or you're dealing with criminals, etc., it's harder. Even if obviously you can find meaning in that, and again, weeding out of society of the badness, it's just harder. The same way that if you watch a lot of TV and a lot of news, that it's all bad news, it brings you down. So try to stay on the positive and find positive meaning, and like you say, don't do things that are unachievable. But I think Einstein said, dream big and don't be afraid. I think it's fine to dream big, and little by little, one step at a time, you can climb that mountain. Mahatma Gandhi said it beautifully: be the change you want to see in the world. Your goals with this great meaning, um, you can do it yourself. You find your team and stuff. But if you see something wrong out there, if you think that, exact for me, labor is not managed the way it could be, and there could be some things that we either discover or we already know that we could implement and we could make things better. Do that. Don't get mad and complain, but
Mm-hmm.
write a guideline or write a paper or go around and give lectures on a better way to manage the second stage or the first stage or whatever you're working on. Be the change. Do the work. Do the work yourself. I have many things for myself. I think about this all the time. Every 30 seconds a baby dies from preterm birth still around the world. That's huge, and I try to make that 40 seconds and 1 minute, and eventually an hour, to have less preterm births around. The cervical length came around when I was a fellow, and an attending was drawing these beautiful services now, 30 some years ago, and doing no research. And I'm like, can I go back and look at these things and put it together? And that I saw that this was important. And then I had this orange line to this Leonardo da Vinci 500-year-old beautiful drawing, and the fact of cerclage, which I thought at the beginning was terrible, but at the end, there is some good evidence that it works in some patients. And then, Dr. Iams and Owen and stuff, say, oh, this is good work, nice presentation. We could do this together. We could do that together. And then around the world, people begin to say, well, I did this, and, my pregnancy did better. And then patients from everywhere tell you, progesterone or cerclage, can save in the US and around the world tens of thousands of people. Um, and like I said before, listen to what other people tell you. Um, I bought this when I was, I think, even a medical student, and I bought it in New York, and just like the painting, this painter, Van Gogh is my first name, Vincent. So I like the colors, I like the art in general. So it's a probably $10 poster, and it's been up in my house forever. And my mom, probably 15 years after I had it in my house, said, "Oh, that's you in that picture." I'm like, "What the heck is she talking about?" And she say, "Yeah, yeah, you've been the store,
Ah,
and you do good, to your patients, to the people around you, to your colleagues, and you will see so much coming back to you over the years, because plants and flowers and beautiful growth that you will see." Um, Making the point that to give is better than to receive, like I have in this slide.
mhm.
I didn't realize that that was one of my goals, to empower people and inspire them in some way, as hopefully we're doing today. But it took my mom to tell me, like, I just like the colors and the kind of painting that this is, and she found a much greater meaning. Um, I think before we go to the next thing, I think we could probably wrap it up, since we're coming up to the end of the hour. So far we've covered social relationships, number one, so important. We covered doing what you like to do, and today I think very related. We cover goals, um, with greater meaning, and you beautifully highlighted how you can focus on those, and small, little by little, by becoming 1% better every day, and setting them every day, you can achieve them. Anything else you want to kind of close with, Kavita? It's been great.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Bergala. I love, the closing message from what your mom said, that you were the person, the sewing. I love that beautiful way. I think it wrapped it up really beautifully. And I think for the listeners, I just end with, when you're setting goals, don't focus on the outcome. Focus
Yeah,
on the journey. Focus on the process, because when you're enjoying what you do, you're going to do it well, and the outcome is going to be great regardless. So I think that's probably what I want to leave people with.
it's beautiful. Let me highlight that. Yesterday, Edelyn Carey, again, one of my mentors and a leadership guru we both know well, she has been dean and leaders and president and world renowned. She says she never applied for a job. I couldn't believe it.
Mm.
She never applied for a job with all the, leadership things she's done. I never thought I was going to be SMFM president, or, head of committee, or, involved with SMFM meetings in the US and around the world. Never thought that. Um, it's not the outcome. I want to highlight what you say. Do what you like to do and set goals that are meaningful to you. And if you keep at it enough, the outcome will come, or even outcomes that you never dreamed of. I never dreamed of, when I was a teenager, I never dreamed of being in the US and being an MFM. It all came because I followed what I like to do. We said it earlier, you know, just follow what you like to do, and everything will follow. I think I think we gave a good message today. Uh, we will gather again in a couple of weeks. We have a little more to cover, um,
Mhm.
and we may actually need another couple of sessions. The pace we're going, Kavita, but that's fine. Hopefully, people will stay with us. And I think we've set February 9th at 8 a.m. Eastern for happiness number 4, and we'll probably have 5 and 6 as well. But then eventually we'll finish. I hope you guys will stay with us, and Dr. Rank, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Again,
Most
follow
likely.
us on Facebook, X, and YouTube, and LinkedIn, etc. Thanks for being with us, Kavita.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bergala. This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.